Hello and welcome back to Techweek TV, brought to you by Callaghan Innovation. My name is Jake Miller. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Unfiltered, and I'm really honoured today to be joined by Darren, the CEO of Serko, and Wendy, the General Manager of APX. It's the last session for the day. It's been a big day. The last session we're going to be focusing on the changing world of corporate travel. So thank you so much for tuning in, for being with us. We're really looking forward to having this session. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So to kick this off, I'm just keen to understand a little bit more about how you both got into the corporate travel industry, why it's a space you're passionate about and have decided to dedicate a portion of your life to, innovating and coming up with solutions to solve issues within the space.
Yeah, I got into it right from school. So started off into this industry, and really to change it, it was quite controlled in really legacy technology, and it was a way of really innovating around travel, and it's really personal. We all travel, and it's something that really touches us, through those journeys and that. So it was quite a cool space to actually get into in the time.
Yeah, and how did you first get into it?
It was through tech, through actually university, and through tech they placed us in a job that happened to be building the first technology for travel and that sort of space, and we started building really innovative technology through the Gulliver's Travel Group, which became Hello World, which is Wendy. And that, so it was pretty cool experience.
For sure.
And that was our first company, was a company called Interactive Technologies, and then Serko was the next evolution of that. So through the second public company. So.
I did a great interview with Andrew Bagnall recently.
Cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, and what about you, Wendy? What was
so
your background?
I also worked for Andrew Bagnall.
Okay.
So my background was the same as Darren, a little bit straight out of university. I was a receptionist at Thomas Cook many years ago.
Okay.
And eventually made my way through a lot of retail roles. And then when the corporate role came up, so APX is the corporate travel division of Hello World, which was previously Gulliver's, run by Andrew Bagnall. And when that role came up, I think for me it was a change, and similar to what you've said, corporate travel is such a part of all of our worlds that still requires a lot of care factor. I think it's, retail is holidays and it's happy days, but I think from that corporate angle is a little bit more interesting and a little bit more cutting edge, which was exciting to me.
Okay, and where do you think the biggest opportunities are today for innovation to be, created to really help the corporate traveller in 2019?
From what we see every day, and so we're a travel management company, we deal mostly with large companies who need to travel, a lot of people need to travel, is every traveller that we speak to, and procurement also, they're looking for that really end-to-end seamless solution, because there's still pieces that are separate from what we do or from what Serko do, and it's about bringing all that together so that the passenger feels like it's one seamless journey.
Yes. Okay. Right. And we've talked today a lot about mega trends and sort of different mega trends in different industries and what's going on. What would you say are the mega trends in corporate travel and in travel in general in 2019?
Yeah. So travel's going through probably one of the biggest changes it's ever gone through. The airlines are now changing the way that they distribute technology, and that gives us the first time to actually evolve the industry. And around 2012, we worked with Google to really reinvent that whole model, so around how we fly, stay, work, play, eat and rest through there, and we can bring that whole life cycle together. And the airlines have started this change to really bring and break that old legacy system that was used and enable that to be really driven into the corporate space around how when we get disrupted, all of the ways that we can integrate AI into there. So it's we're now getting into this model of this truly connected traveller, which is pretty cool. It's a pretty cool experience to be part of.
What does the utopian corporate travel experience look like in 2019?
In 2019?
Or let's say in 2025.
I was going to say it's not quite there yet. I've seen some bits and pieces around even the airport experience, so that's beyond, but it is beyond what we do. Without any queues, everything's based around the facial recognition, those sorts of things. Because at the moment, and we deal with this a lot as a travel management company, there's still pain, it's not fun. Our byline is experience the good side of business travel, because we all know there's a not good side.
That's so true.
So it's taking all those pain points away, including things like expense management. That's huge in corporate travel, having to deal with claiming for your cup of tea when you're working, or those sorts of things. So if that can integrate with the travel solution, that's what people are looking for.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't realise sometimes how good we have it here until you travel in other countries, right? Like I've been based in the US for a couple of years, and every time I come back to New Zealand, I'm like, this is so much easier. But even still, there's still pain points everywhere that exist, and there's so much room for innovation.
Oh yeah, and it's one of the things that we've sort of looked at. I do about 100 and 120 flights a year.
Wow.
And so you suffer 30% of those are disrupted. And so working around, technology where AI can work out that I'm flying to Los Angeles and my flight's going to be delayed and I need a new connection, and comes back and provides the suggestions to either the EA or directly to the traveller. Those are the things that we're doing, and the pain points around expense. Some of the guys that we have on our team actually have worked out how to remove expense. By changing the design of how we book. We're able to remove that whole process around expense management and how we tap and go through that technology and reconcile those sort of receipting sort of processes behind the scenes. So the utopia for us is really around that. It's kind of going back to the 80s where someone just handed you something and everything just worked. And it's kind of having the tech that actually takes you through that journey where everything follows you. It's all interconnected. So when something bad happens, the systems know how to recover, and when it doesn't, it passes the advice to the experts. When there is things.
It's a beautiful thing when it works, right? Yeah. And Darren, what do you think in 2019? We've had thousands of entrepreneurs tuning in today from all around the country and, looking at different industries and different ways to start different ideas. Where do you think the greatest opportunities are for valuable companies in travel to be founded today?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. You're seeing a lot of it out of the States and trying to manage small businesses. And travel, it's really around experiences and around how we're improving that whole travel ecosystem. And I think part of it, it's quite hard to get into corporate travel because they're spending millions. So you've got to try and break that. Leisure is a lot easier to get into because you can create a system and monetize that through a community where you don't have to meet necessarily the security hurdles. And if you can imagine with corporate travel holding personal data, it's quite hard to get over that line. But there's still a lot to innovate around that. We're working with companies like a New Zealand Predict HQ to bring the event management through into the ecosystem. So there's a lot of other companies that can be adding value around the whole ecosystem in that marketplace to really bring value around risk management, events, all of the things that touch corporates that aren't being done today can be actually brought together in there. So if they look at what you would do on your journey and the things that you would touch, those are the things you can actually innovate around.
Exactly. It's like, as Wendy says, it's that end-to-end experience of like every single touch point through leaving the house to arriving at the hotel, really, isn't it? And then the trip as well.
But then there's also things in the procurement space that there's going to be industry-specific necessities that can be met through innovation as well. So you've got things like a consulting kind of company. Quite often someone will travel, but they might be meeting 3 or 4 different clients. So being able to, again, expense that trip against 4 different clients, that's the type of thing that seems that should just be able to happen, but it's not that simple. So that's quite a specific type of innovation, but that's the type of thing we need. There's things like pre-approval processes. We work with some very large companies where it's the pre-approval is about getting the per day cost that you're allowed to spend on your cup of tea and your dinner. That has to be pre-approved before it will be signed off to be allowed to go. So there's a lot in that space. Even working with these sorts of guys around security. You mentioned security of data, but then security of the traveller. So risk management. If you're travelling to a country that's a little bit more high risk, instead of being allowed to just go and book it, it has to be passed past the risk team first. So there's actually a lot of complexity around the ecosystem. It's certainly not just getting in your car and going to the airport. There's so much that happens before and also after.
Yeah, and I realise like airlines are only one small part of the entire experience, but what airlines do you both believe are like leading the world in innovation when it comes to travel?
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, Air New Zealand has been, but Qantas has also jumped the gun, and they've really pushed the boundary around what you can do through technology. So one of the things that they're doing in Australia is the ability to use, in the future, points and pay, as a corporate user, not just on the consumer sides. And what the airlines are doing are bringing all of that consumer experience through into the corporate world.
Right.
And that means that we can start to do those things that we would normally jump back to those leisure sites to do. And so Qantas are doing things like that, but also around that disrupt. There's things that we can do around moving you to another airline. So when when you're stuck and you actually need to get to your meeting, that ability to actually do that is pretty cool.
And what about like for I guess it might be a little bit above what your average corporate would be willing to invest, but companies like NetJets and so on, how have they disrupted the industry? Do you think that's a growth market? Are the McKinseys of the world prepared to charter private planes if they've got enough consultants going to the same place? What does that look like?
Yeah, I'm not actually sure how that will go in future. There's certainly an element of that, but I don't know if that is hugely increased.
Yeah, it's more of a US. I guess it's more of a US sort of. There's a couple of examples over there of NetJets is probably a good example. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. And I'm curious to know, like, obviously we talked about some of those mega trends. Topics like AI, chatbots, blockchain. How are these affecting travel?
Yeah, I mean, so today, Zeno, which is our main technology platform, 97% of all bookings that are done on our platform today are done via AI selection. So you used to have to look at a selection of, say, 20 or 30 flights and all of the fare combinations, and using past behaviours, our engine can actually determine 11 options, which is what the brain can consume, and it picks the one that you should be travelling on. So 56% of the time, the user books the selection that the AI makes, or they choose from the 11 options that the AI has generated 97% of the time. So AI is having this huge impact into the booking process. But the other part that's quite cool is that we've started to bring out the chat services. So like the Ask Zeno services, I can say, hey Zeno, book my travel for next week, and it looks up my calendar and it works out my pattern, and it produces a selection. And we can do that via voice, all these different chat, whether Messenger, Slack, and Skype for Business as well. So it's a pretty cool mechanism for people to quickly just jump online where they're sitting and actually do that sort of work.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. You see anything else?
Similarly, I was just going to back up because we use their technology for our customers. It's interesting, once the customer is used to the AI side, they get very grumpy when it's, when there's anything different, because it becomes part of your normal life. And the strange thing with corporate travel is that it's sort of playing catch up, I think, and people like these guys are getting right into it, because the leisure side, as Darren mentioned, is somehow more malleable to that applying technology, that you quite often get corporates to get a bit grumpy because their leisure experience is one thing and then the corporate is different, and it became more complicated, but that uncomplicating is definitely...
Yeah, it's sort of the blending together, that's what we're trying to do, is bring the consumerisation from what corporates have is 1,000 websites that they choose their content from, and they may only choose 16 hotels in one city, or even 5. So they look at a subset of that, and what we're doing is we've got to provide a policy, which is the rules around there to say you can fly business class if you're over 7 hours. If you're a normal employee, it's only economy. And all of those sort of rules over the content become quite complex.
Right. And do you find that people who are travelling New Zealand's a little bit different because there's only one sort of main airline in New Zealand as such, but if you're living in particularly global markets, like are people loyal to that one airline generally across both corporate and personal, or will people switch?
Really. They
driven by points and status,
is there any innovation happening in that space?
I think they're constantly trying, aren't they?
I think if you're going to lose this is where technology kicks in. If you're going to lose your loyalty status, and you're going to fly Air New Zealand or Jetstar, and someone puts you on a Jetstar, for $10 difference, and you're going to lose your Koru status.
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so that's where
Very emotional.
it's very emotional, and that's where technology has to blend, and that's where AI can actually help.
And the technology doesn't always work. That's the thing. And when travel is such a passionate thing that you get so frustrated. Like this morning, I was trying to book a flight to Sydney, and it costs more to fly with premium economy on Air New Zealand than it did business class. Like I wasn't complaining, but I'm like, that's just dumb, you know.
Yeah.
It's like the algorithms are sometimes weird. Like it's interesting how I think the technology, there's definitely room for innovation because that's, seems to happen a lot with all these.
And you find
bugs
it's really personal. I mean, you wouldn't want to turn up to the airport without a ticket.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't want to be able to turn up to a hotel and the reservation doesn't exist. So it becomes very emotional, especially when you're going to these new destinations as
Absolutely, yeah. And what about, these like, not voice recognition. You see these like, I think the term is chatbots, like Oscar Air New Zealand has, and these artificial intelligent kind of humans that you talk to, Is the technology ready, or is it just a bit of a buzz thing at the moment?
So that's what we do.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Ask Zeno system is exactly that. It's where you can voice it, or you can go in via typing and chat to it. Exactly that.
Has it got the face and the facial recognition?
Well, so when you look at some of the tech that we've done, we work with the guys from FaceMe.
Okay,
and we've produced
Danny
a full,
and his team, great.
So we've produced a full virtual assistant around that, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
And it blows people away because it picks up all of that emotive sort of side of it. So it's.
And what I love about it is it's just getting, like, it's early days in terms of that technology, and in terms of the next 10 years and where that can go, it's going to be pretty smart pretty soon.
Yeah, and when I think about it from a trend perspective, probably one of the other things we've noticed that work well in with that is that procurement people are switching more towards, sounds weird, but towards the traveller.
Yes.
While it used to be much more controlling back from the company to the traveller, now they're seeing that if the traveller's happy, procurement's happy. So you're starting to get more people pushing to self-booking, removing approval systems because it takes away that sort of logjam of waiting for it to go and come back.
Yeah.
And we've got some amazing case studies where once you remove that approval process, but you still keep the, the responsibility for that budget with whoever that is, but that they have control of that, then it actually lowers the cost of travel, because when the person's in control of what they're doing, they're actually choosing sensibly. But tools like the chatbots and the AI is absolutely driving towards that traveller-driven versus company-driven.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And just finally, just conscious of time, going a little bit off script here, but what are both of your top sort of travel tips for, arriving, feeling fresh into a new destination after a 12 or 13-hour flight?
I always do. I try and always take just a normal bag so I don't have the stress of trying to make connections in there. But the first thing I always do is I always buy one above. So I've been doing it for years, and I know the guys really well, but it does work. It seems to help with that jet lag.
I use that too, absolutely.
Yeah.
And packing cubes are my thing. Packing cubes.
Sleeping pills?
Yeah, I do.
Melatonin.
Right.
Yeah, I do take the real ones.
Likewise.
It does seem to work, that just getting that sleep. Through onto that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not giving medical advice to the viewers, but it definitely works. That's for sure. You do arrive feeling a bit better. Well, it's been a huge pleasure. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules, and it's clear there's so much innovation going on, and I really can't wait to see both from the corporate travel perspective of like services, but also the technology perspective where you both take things. So thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you.
And thank you so much to the viewers for tuning in. It's been an awesome big day with so many great discussions, and we're so excited to pick things up tomorrow morning in Wellington. So we look forward to seeing you bright and early for another full day of Tech Week. Thank you so much to Callaghan Innovation. Thank you so much to Ali and her team and the producers behind the scenes. And see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching.